I have stores of value, whether that be securities, cash, crypto, digital assets, whatever. I want to travel the globe and seamlessly be able to spend those stores of value. Instead of all these silos of asset classes and all these things, it's like, look, I own them. I have a private key. I can cryptographically prove that I own them and they are mine. Please let me spend them in the most efficient way. Here's cryptographic proof I own these things. We're going to let the computer figure out what the most efficient way to give you stores of value is, route that, and go.
You're listening to Season 6 of Stableminded, powered by Rain. Rain helps financial teams build and manage stablecoin-powered card programs. With a single API, Rain lets you issue branded cards and unlock new revenue. With Rain, users can move, store, and spend stablecoins instantly and compliantly in over 150 countries. Join us this season to explore how Visa, Crossmint, Yellow Card, Arculus, and the state of Wyoming are embedding stablecoin flows into their business. You can learn more at rain.xyz. All right, Adam, how we doing, man? Thanks for joining.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
So excited for this conversation. You said that you have a lot of these types of conversations around stablecoins, payments. You have an official backdrop. I'm jealous. I'm going to have to get one myself. Personally, I'm just really excited to dive into you, your story, the role that you serve here at Compo and Arculus, and specifically how that might interact with the specific technologies behind the scenes with cards and payments. There's so much that we can dive into today. Thank you for taking the time. Why don't we start with your background at the company and really just how you got into this specifically? From my knowledge of your role and where you sit at the firm, you seem to be in a really, really crucial position of influence and what I would consider to be someone who's driving a lot of the internal championship for this type of technology within a larger company like Compo. So maybe position us a little bit in your role, your background, stuff like that.
Sure. Appreciate it. So I'm Adam Lowe. I'm Chief Product and Innovation Officer at Compo Secure and Arculus. I've been with Compo roughly 12 years. So going back in history, when I first started, it really was all about making metal cards grow, meaning we had some very high-end private wealth, essentially pieces of jewelry that we did every month, but we really wanted to grow the business into the mass affluent space and more the mass space and expand the portfolio. And most of my job when I started was very technical. So how do you make metal tap to pay? It's very hard. We have an antenna right next to a ground plane. I had some people tell me it was impossible, but years later we have millions and millions of tap to pay metal cards. So grew the technology side of the business for a long time. And then roughly 4 years ago, out of personal interest and my background in defense prior to payments, I really wanted to do more with a card, right? So inside a card is that secure element, that chip that does all of the payment math. And it's like a V12 Ferrari engine firing on 4 cylinders. It only does one thing. It only uses a fraction of the cryptography it's capable of. So I thought, well, why don't we take this form factor that everyone knows, loves with our beautiful metal cards and have it do more, right? So the other analogy is Alton Brown on Food Network says, never have something in your kitchen that only does one thing. So why should your card only do one thing? So we added elliptic curve to the payment card to do blockchain magic and passkey magic. So to my knowledge, we're the first people in the payment card space, metal or plastic, to do that. So, our cards today are Arculus enabled. So that means it's a payment card, Visa, Mastercard, Amex, JCB, whatever. It's a full hardware wallet, full HD hardware wallet where you generate, store, and manage your keys, and a full hardware passkey. So in the same way that someone might use a YubiKey to log into something, it's now in your card, can manage your crypto passkey wallet, can manage your passkey to get into Coinbase or other custodians. It's security in your pocket, offline where it belongs, no cloud to hack.
It's incredible. I don't think people don't appreciate all of the nuances to all of those different things, like the payment network integration, the security on the passkey side, the custody on the wallet side. These are all different, even focuses for some companies that are just focused on that specific thing. I'd love to go back into your background a little bit. A lot of this financial technology being a security focus and being a national security focus. I'd be curious, given your background in that world, what you think about that, or how that relates to this specific tech.
So the sourcing of chips that do this and the code that executes this is extremely important. And that's why, when we source these chips, we go directly to fab. So our code is injected at the fab, securely signed, and comes.
What does that mean?
So that means you'll go to a secure element manufacturer like NXP or Infineon. They contract the actual fab that grows the silica to make the microcontroller and make the secure chip. We securely give them our code. So when that chip is literally grown, right, silicon is grown, sliced, and etched. And so as that semiconductor is grown and now can interact and be an actual microcontroller and do the computation it needs, you can securely inject code because there's a little bit of flash memory in there. So, wafer is 12, 16-inch wafer. Many microcontrollers, 30,000 or so microcontrollers are grown onto that. You securely flash that code while it's still in the fab being made. They dice it, they package it, and that turns into the chip that lives in credit cards. So understanding where those are made, how the code flow is, all the keys. To your point, like at this point, I sort of hand wave it because it's just daily life, but there's an incredible amount of work, security, logistics, and certifications that go into that. I could go on and on. FIPS, EMVCo, the payment networks, ISO, like just an incredible amount of work the teams do to make it compliant and certified to all those standards.
When I think about the positioning of Arculus within Compo Secure, I think it's important just on what you said of maybe helping people frame in their minds the relationship there and how maybe that relationship began. Because when I think about a lot of those standards and security practices and the ability to do everything like you're saying end to end, my mind goes to how important it is to be within the Compo Secure ecosystem in that.
Yeah, it really helped being born out of payments. So to flesh out the story, about 4 years ago, I'd been at Compo 8 years or so at that point. I went to our CEO and said, I see this huge burgeoning space. I think identity and payments are going to continue to merge. Blockchain is just faster, cheaper, better, full stop. We need to be there. We don't want to be looking at the next rail or next railroad, whatever analogy, and not have a ticket. Like we want to be at the crux of it, being able to serve all rail gauges. And that's really important to me. So John's great. I asked him for a bit of money and told him I'd give him a digital business. And here we are 4 years later. And he gave me the money to build a digital business and we have a great one. So Arculus is our digital asset and digital identity platform servicing those custodial, non-custodial, and security needs with a focus on payment. And even we'll talk about it later, some of the cool point of sale work we're doing. I appreciate John's foresight. And yeah, Arculus is my baby and have grown it since about 4 years ago.
What was it like going into that meeting with him? I don't know what your relationship was like with him. It sounds like you started at the company, you were there for a while. What did you actually present versus what Arculus is today? Like, what was it like going into that call with him or meeting?
It's good. John and I have a really good relationship. Nothing ends up exactly where you thought it was going to be, right? So it was very much focused on our consumer wallet product because that was the first product out of the gate. And obviously we sell a lot of that product. I love that product, but it was really about, here's a new vertical. We can grow the business. It leverages hardware we already make. So you don't have to we have to go do a lot of software work, but we don't have to go build this other thing. We make millions of this same form factor every year. Now it's a new vertical we can sell into and new possibilities for the business.
Why did you, I would say the stablecoin crypto forward, I think the entrepreneur use case in a sense is going to probably become way more popular where like it probably does make sense to do this model. What would you say to why did you decide to, instead of go out and do this yourself, embed it for you in your mindset? And then like for anyone else who's maybe within a bigger company thinking about those differences, like, should I just leave and go build this and then micro strategy it? I think that's what he did.
I'm probably hyper analytical to a fault, right? So in my mind, the risk adjusted reward made sense. So you can imagine as part of that conversation, John, I want to go build this for you, blah, 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 blah. Part of that was career trajectory and what that's going to earn me within the company and the incremental value that I would get as part of, hugely growing the value of the company. So, everybody should look at it when they do that trade-off, I would say, as the risk adjusted reward. Like, yeah, you can go to A16Z and you can go raise a bunch of capital and you'll see what equity you're left with after the VC guys are done. It's a riskier transaction depending on where you currently work. The support network is much lower, right? You have to go do everything on your own. So I would say at the end of the day, it comes down to the person's risk tolerance and how well they think they can execute within that larger company. Some places are better built to do that than others. But even here, as great as Compo is, it's mainly been a manufacturing company for a long time, right? So getting that trajectory change where part of the company is doing software, licensing software, executing software that may have nothing to do with hardware we're manufacturing, is a bit of a change. And it's been great from a business perspective, but it does take a mindset change with some people who've been here even longer than me. So wherever you do, there's challenges, right? So for entrepreneurs, it's changing the vision and trajectory of the company a little bit. For entrepreneurs, right, you got to go raise capital, and it's all on you, and it's a constant burn, and there's more equity upside. So bottom line, do your risk adjusted reward and try to think about it that way and see how you can maximize your outcome.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, from my vantage point, it makes a ton of sense, especially given recent massive partnership announcements, what seem to be just very focused on, I think about like the Coinbase One card and American Express and Compo there. And I'd imagine the influence that Compo has within this world is only going to continue to support what I would call hot leads into the Arculus ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I remember our first consensus, and actually, I think our very first event was CES, just because of the way the calendar ran. And, from being like nobody to now, we go in consensus and everybody knows who Arculus is.
Yep.
It's really nice. And yeah, in the,
I don't think I've ever met someone who doesn't know Tom.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, Tom is everywhere. I think Tom is, if there was like a loyalty reward points for the people who show up to the most crypto events, like Tom would be up there. He's
yes.
great.
I used to get to more of them, but with all of the work on the compo side, I can't be everywhere. And I'm sort of the designated Tom equivalent for passkeys. So like when they do the passkey security conference stuff around the world, like
Mm.
that's where I am. So there's often points where Tom is in like Singapore and I'm in Germany, and like yeah, it's everywhere.
So let's dive into Arculus. So you go to the CEO, you get the capital, you form this company within CompoSecure. You're leading the ship. Give us maybe just the origin story and kind of how the evolution of where things started and how things have now evolved. I think if I were to guess, we're in a moment right now that feels like this might be very different in terms of how you think about Arculus in the future versus maybe how you started.
Yeah, I would say that the overall shift has shifted in volume from the consumer product to the B2B products. So if you think about the B2B crypto card space, right, we do basically all of them. Coinbase got announced, it's public that we're doing that. Doing the Metamask card, that's public. Gemini, you name a card out there, metal card in the crypto space, we're doing them. So, we're very happy for all those partners. And I won't comment too much because some of it's public, some of it's not, about what Arculus tech is on what card, but we happily support wallet and passkey and the payment networks on the cards with whatever those partners want. So that's been fantastic to see and grow. And to pivot that back to history, right, where I would say it's when we very first started, like the consumer product was it in terms of Arculus tech on the card. And then over time, we incrementally added the passkey tech because we really also wanted to serve the custodial use case, where when we launched it was purely non-custodial. And then we've grown both of those because I think, people should have that choice of whether they keep their assets in custody with someone like Coinbase or self-custody and MetaMask or Arculus wallet or whatever. So to be clear, I absolutely love our consumer product and think it's the best consumer hardware wallet out there, but we've really grown by leaps and bounds the B2B business as well.
So let's just start with this consumer product. Let's be really clear about what is it. If someone's listening to this, who is it built for, and how could someone get started with it, or the core functionalities that it unlocks for people today?
Sure. Hardware wallets used to be hard, I think almost by design, right? It was like the nerd cool kid club. And I really wanted to change that paradigm. So we have something called the Adam's mom rule, where if I can't hand it to my mom and have her use it without instruction, then it's too hard. Well, what it is, it's a hardware wallet, meaning you generate, store, and manage keys on this card, and gives you full access to the crypto ecosystem. So you download the mobile app, that's free. You take your hardware wallet, it generates and manages your keys. And anytime you want to transact on the blockchain, you simply tap your card to your phone, enter in your PIN. You'll have already biometricked into the app to get in. So it's really true 3 independent FA and keeps your keys safe. So what I always say is while somebody else is turning on their USB stick or e-ink screen widget, I'll be done with my transaction because it's just as fast as easy as tapping a card at a point of sale. And keys are in your pocket, safe, offline, in a platform that uses the same type of secure operating system trusted by billions of credit cards around the world that's never been hacked.
And who are you seeing? This has now been live for a few years. When did this launch, and what are you seeing as a core use case or customer type, or I don't know how much you can bucket these types of use cases on the retail side, but I'm curious, like, who's drawn into that right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically crypto native people, very forward leaning. Self custody is not usually your first entree into crypto. Usually somebody on ramps into Robinhood or Coinbase or a custodial platform. It's usually your second step where you've amassed a certain amount of money, or someone's talked to you and you've really taken not your keys, not your crypto to heart, and you've decided to move to a self-custody platform. Now you got to figure out which one. And so it's usually, I'd say, that person in the second step of their crypto journey, or someone's that's just very tech forward, likes technology, and then wants to keep their assets safe. So that's typical user profile we see. And then sometimes it's by chain. We have a very large XRP following as an example. So we have a lot of XRP users, broad user base, but that's one that sticks out for me.
Which of those user bases would you fall into if, when you, I'm assuming, use the product yourself?
Yes, I have a lot of, not enough to retire, but a fair amount of Bitcoin and other assets on Arculus. So yes, I self-custody my assets.
Is that how you got into this conversation to begin with? Did it start with Bitcoin, or when was the first like blockchain thread for you?
Yeah, it was Bitcoin. I mean, I was in grad school when the white paper came out, and it's interesting. There's actually a Big Bang Theory episode that was a lot like my life, where they were like, "Hey, do you remember we all read that white paper like a few years ago? Like, do you remember anybody remember where our keys are? No, I can't remember." So like, I don't know. My show and that show emulates my life in a bit because it was the same time period. I was in grad school when that show was popular, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, a few of us had that same experience of like reading the white paper, playing with it on a laptop, and keys are somewhere. But I definitely had Bitcoin, had some XRP, had some other assets, and yeah, very quickly got into self custody. I think it's just for me, it's a personality thing and an ethos thing. So I was very, very quickly drawn to self custody.
Yeah. So moving from you have this retail or this personal or individual wallet, this cold storage wallet. It's connected to a card. It has a hardware security built in, the asset custody built in. How did this now evolve into personally what I think it seems like a lot of the strategic focus is right now is this B model, and there's this vision and how you work with other partners like a Rain, for example. How did that how did that evolve? And maybe are there some examples or early design partner case studies that you guys worked with that kind of brought that to life or made that click for you?
Yeah, I think some of it was just, anytime you're growing a business, you leverage the connections you have, right? And on the traditional compo business, right, we have very strong relationships with very large issuers and issuing platforms. So, right, like we probably one of the few places that can call JP Morgan, American Express, Revolut, N20, et cetera, right, and get the phone picked up. So because we have that strong banking background and in those relationships in that space, it just sort of gravitated to, especially as stablecoins and Web3 became more and more mainstream, of being the go-to business partner to help implement that. So, here we've leaned into that, whether that be a issuing platform service like your Fiserv FISs of the world, the actual issuers themselves, and sort of all the in-betweens. And we just leveraged our existing network and helped grow the B2B business. So it was taking the really great tech we've built and adding sort of our existing network, and then growing that business and adding value, right? Some people sort of like push their product upstream. I'm really happy we have not had to do that. And we can truly add value to these partners, whether it be our smart contracts, our hardware, our software. Aptos did our hardware wallet when they were doing their big launch. A Change Finance white labeled our hardware. We've had some other big partners white label our tech. And then, as we mentioned, the recent announcements of Coinbase, Metamask, and others. So we've just grown that B2B segment by leveraging the network and the great tech we built.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, when you think about because it sounds like there are a couple really key problems and defensibility moats that you guys have that are like, oh, we're not even going to touch that. We'll just go to Arculus and have them like solve that XYZ problem, and then we can go build our business or whatever. Specifically in your mind, are those extremely difficult, even just pieces of those broader categories, like you've mentioned, like the security, custody, payment integrations? What about those things uniquely seem most difficult to these builders or makes them feel maybe overwhelmed or like, oh yeah, we have to go to Arculus for this? Why is that so hard?
Yeah, there's certain, if you touch a traditional payment rail as part of your flow, it's highly regulated and highly standardized. So if you put something on a smart card as an example, it has to be approved by the payment network that's branded by. So not only does it have to technically work, it has to be approved, certified, and blessed by Visa, Mastercard, EMVCo, et cetera. So that is very hard, cost intensive, and very specific and somewhat niche. So you have to know how to do that, and that's challenging.
On a transactional basis, like every transaction has to be.
It has to be compliant. So you certify to an overall standard, and then if you certify to that standard, you know that every transaction will be compliant. But that is time consuming and very specific. Getting it to execute on a smart card, like if it's an object or tokenized card, again, it goes over a very specific standard. So engineering and building to that is challenging. So like that, it's just not worth people figuring all that out. It's much easier and effective for them to come to us. So another mode's patents, right? Compo has hundreds of patents in the space around metal cards, Web3 on cards, passkeys on cards, and right, that's not something to mess with, right? We're very serious about our intellectual property. So like that's another moat. And third is scale, right? Compo does millions and millions of cards every year, tons of contract transactions, tons of Web3 customers. You just go to the experts at the end of the day, because if they're doing a remittance business or some sort of specific payments business, like they need to focus on their business. And then we're adding value by giving them tech they need to go accomplish their mission.
When you think about the customer use case on the B2B side that gets you the most pumped up, the thing that the whether that's like, my goal in asking this isn't to like have you flex or name names or like, it's more of just like trying to unpack how you see Arculus used in a commercial use case that fires you up the most. I'd be curious, like, what implementation have you seen or are you working on that kind of outlines? Because why I'm asking this is it seems like Arculus is more modular in a sense, where you can kind of come in and like, maybe I have two of these three pieces figured out and I really just need something, or I'm starting from scratch, I need everything. And in my mind, it sometimes becomes more difficult to understand how you think about a business if it's sort of modular like that. I think maybe some people feel that way too. I know I'm like asking you 5 questions at once. Do you feel like the modular nature of the business is something you actually like? And are there specific examples that outline that modular nature that you think are really cool?
No, it's a great question. I think it can make it harder to sell sometimes. So I like it as a builder, right? Because I want all the colors and shapes of Legos that I can have so that I can build the exact toy that I want, right?
Yeah.
So like I like it that way. I think the salespeople, it's a little harder for them sometimes because they have to have a more nuanced conversation, and the person buying on the other side has to understand what they need. So it can be a little more nuanced versus a prescriptive selling of, I have this pen, to use the overused example, right? So,
And you
I think
like that
that's,
about it. It sounds
yeah,
like
I
you
like
like
it.
that.
I like it. And I think when I talk to other really technical people or founders or people that are executing, they like it as well, right? So we often talk about like our 3-in-1 card. It's a payment card, Visa, Mastercard, Amex, whatever. It's passkey and it's wallet. Mix and match however you want. And if you need the FIDO server for the passkeys, we got that too. If you need our back end that talks to every relevant blockchain, we got that too. So you have to know your customer, right? Sometimes it's more prescriptive, like, oh, I understand your business case. Here's the tech you need to help solve that. And it's more prescriptive. Or sometimes I'm talking to someone very technical and it's, okay, here's the things, here's what they do, here's how they optimized. Oh no, that's written in Rust, not Go. Like, a really technical conversation. So I think it's know your customer, but I really love and value the modularity. Choice is huge with me. So I value that. As far as what I get fired up about, so I have this vision that I always talk with Tom about, and I call it the global Johnnie Walker. And I really like that logo. So say pro or con on the drink, I like the logo. And I
Johnnie
like,
Walker's whiskey logo.
yeah. So I have this vision in my head of what I call global Johnnie Walker. And that's sort of any digital asset in, anything out. Like I have stores of value, whether that be securities, cash, crypto, digital assets, whatever. I have stores of value, and I want to travel the globe and seamlessly be able to spend those stores of value. And we are definitely not there yet from a payments ecosystem. But where I want to get is, instead of all of these silos, and I truly think blockchain is going to enable this, instead of all these silos of asset classes and all these things, it's like, look, I own them. I have a private key. I can cryptographically prove that I own them and they are mine. Please let me spend them in the most efficient way on a tax cost basis, whatever way. Like I want to spend them efficiently. You have pizza, I want pizza. Here's cryptographic proof I own these things. We're going to let the computer figure out what the most efficient way to give you stores of value is, route that, and go. So that's a slightly longer way of saying anything in, anything out. But I really think we can get there, and that's what I'm working on. So in the meantime, that means you have to serve like 8 different gauges of railroad and route the train appropriately, and it's very hard. But that's what we're working on in the background so that the trains can come in on whatever gauge rail, leave on whatever gauge rail, and it's seamless for the consumer and the merchant. Not there yet, but that's like Adam's dream and vision.
Yeah. Well, you're taking pretty big steps, I think, to get there. With the Johnnie Walker label specifically, I'm looking at it right now. Say a little bit more on that. So you like the way that the logo sort of emulates that vision a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit?
sort of that like I think about it like a global traveler, right? Like I'm enabled, like it's that hyper permissionless perspective, right? And this is me talking like neither company logo up there. This is like Adam Lowe's for permission, right? Like I have a key, I have my stuff. I don't need to ask anyone's permission. I'm going to travel the globe. I'm going to buy, sell whatever I need, provide you that value. You're going to provide me value back. And permissionlessly. I don't need to ask anyone's permission, and we're going to do it. And we're going to exchange goods and value, right? It almost harkens back to like cash days and like everything was a cash transaction. Well, everything now is sort of a digital asset, direct transactions. If you can do that in the most cost effective way, it becomes true competition, right? And cost effectively becomes cost.
Yep.
Like that's what I'm hoping we get to. As you said, we're making big strides on that. On the card side, the payment side, and even the point of sale side, where a few people, I think, including you, I know you've seen this, seen the demo where we can like tap and pay over stablecoin rails directly on chain. So we're super excited about that. And talking about changing assets, right? You can hit a DEX, you can hit a centralized exchange, route that. Arculus has Paxos and Circle accounts, so we can route to stables, mint, burn. We can do a lot.
Yeah. It's that so the Johnnie Walker vision is like this end state that it does seem like the company is pointing to, or really the stablecoin industry is pointing to, that folks like Rain are pointing to, where you actually can live. And I think what a lot of builders right now are talking about, which is this sort of on-chain native reality where people are actually holding digital assets within these payment systems, and it can actually just stay within the, as Burhan from Keyrails calls it, like the quantum layer of money. I don't know if that term is the best, but I think it sounded cool. Like everything
Yeah.
just exists up here. In your view, just given your vantage point, how far away are we from that reality, in your opinion?
I think
And
we're
yeah,
not that far away. You know, you've heard Amex talk about stablecoins. You've heard Brian Moynihan from B of A talk about stablecoins. I don't think we're far away. I was talking about this with someone the other day. I think it really depends on how quickly banks become blockchain companies or blockchain companies become banks. At least in the United States, there's no concept of an electronic money license in the US. If we had one, it would be a lot easier to do all this, but it doesn't exist. Genius Act certainly helped a lot, but having an electronic money license would just have made this a lot easier.
does Genius, in your view, help banks become more, like it's more helpful to the banking side or the blockchain side?
I think it's more helpful to the blockchain side, net net. So I think it's the Circles and Paxoses of the world got more out of it than the traditional banks. I think traditional banks are still well positioned. I think the biggest fight is going to be tokenized deposits versus stables and what exactly that means and what you can do with them, and all from a regulatory perspective, not a tech perspective. So we'll see that fight. So, to me right now, yes, I would love, like every time you mint or burn, it's just somewhat needless friction. I would love for everybody to just stay in stables and just live digitally in stables. And for people that are like, oh, but it's dead money. No, just Aave wrap it and get yield and then flip right back out to stables and spend, or you could spend the Aave wrap stable. I have lots of Aave wrap stables and I earn yield on them every day.
So in this reality that you're discussing, and it sounds like you think this is pretty, this isn't as far away maybe as people might think with recent developments in the last few months. It has been pretty wild to see some of the biggest financial players in the world. For the last 2 weeks, we've been doing this like daily news show. And so I've just been like ingesting more news about the industry than I ever have in my whole life. And I've been pretty blown away by some of these massive announcements that are coming out. I actually tend to agree with you that this is closer than we might realize. What pragmatically, though, do you think needs to happen, or what will be the uphill battle? Because I think signaling you want to do this, right, is different than actually executing it.
It's So legacy finance and the back end of payments, there's a lot of duct tape and baling wire. So it's the old infra and making that work with like new. I can't tell you the number of conversations where I'm like drawing a flow with someone to be like, okay, and we'll settle in real time with you. And they're like, whoa, no, we can't settle in real time. I can't take your money that fast.
For
So
what
like
purpose? Like, why wouldn't they be able to do that? Like,
just mechanics like that their internal ledger can't handle that, their internal systems can't handle that,
their
like
internal brain.
that back end just in a lot of legacy finance can't deal with that. So
Huh.
it's the classic like legacy code, legacy infra problem in that sort of last mile of cash at a layer, above the Fed. So we can move between banks faster and faster, move between people instantly, but that bulk capital getting from regional bank up through someone who serves that regional bank, back out to a Fed, et cetera, like that old school infra is going to take a while to fix, and because people have to figure out who's going to pay for it. So that
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest lift is legacy infrastructure.
I think you guys sit on both sides of that spectrum. I would say, like, you can serve and ride both of those waves really, really well. But I think with Rain, switching gears to them or kind of double clicking there, when I think about the people who can move quickly, the companies who are innovating from scratch potentially or starting from zero and building extremely fast growing apps or neobanks or platforms or things that are being used in a stablecoin native way that we've seen in the last 6 months, like I think stablecoin payment cards, we can show some data here, but it's been one of the most explosive use cases for the asset class. Like, can you talk a little bit about where stablecoin payments in your minds fit into this business and maybe what you've seen in the last 6 months and where Rain fits into this? Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, Rain adds a lot of value to the ecosystem, especially relative to their smart contracts and Farouk's background and like understands how payments work. So, I also, the way their smart contracts are structured, I think fit well within the payments ecosystem. So for people listening, right, you essentially can take your stable coin, put it on the smart contract, and it monthly settles. So if you pay your bill, right, your assets just sit there. If not, they get liquidated because you owe money. And it functions like a traditional credit card on Visa or Mastercard rails, and also understands how to plug into those networks. So I think it's well positioned and solves a need because you had all of these people that have all these digital assets or capital in the Web3 space and need to be able to spend it, use it, et cetera, whether it be a DAO or Web3 platform. And it really gave them a means to go buy groceries and dinner and kind of function in the Web2 world with all of these Web3 assets. So it solves a real need by connecting Web3 rails to Web2, Web 2.5 rails, and figuring out how to get stable coins and digital assets to Visa, right? So, if you think about probably the flow, you may have had a non-stable digital asset like I have a bunch of bonk. Okay, I'm going to flip the bonk to USDC on Sol. Great, I'm going to remit USDC on Sol to the smart contract. I bought pizza. I need to pay for the pizza at the end of 30 days. That gets liquidated to the bank and I'm good to go. So, it really connected those rails, I think, in a thoughtful way. And then that's where we come in and work with Rain because we physically interact with those rails via card and we physically sign those smart contracts. But because the wallet also lives on the card, right, the keys that when you sign and push those stables also live on the card, which is incredibly important. So our physical object and security object interacts with both sides of those rails as well. Talking to VisaNet when we do Visa, talking to Web3 when we sign that Sol contract, ETH contract, whatever chain you're on. So Arculus and Rain complement each other extremely well. And they've done smart contracts on a lot of chains. We've done some smart contracts on chains they don't do or don't do yet. So it's been really good.
It's amazing. I'd love to bring this to life with our business, or as a concrete example, we use Dakota for our business banking and treasury for Stable Dash. And I believe now with this platform with Rain, there's an embedded card that I've been issued that has the ability to spend on like a credit card that I can use that's tied to this Dakota account. And I know it's Rain because I follow everything. If I didn't, I would just think that this is some Dakota digital card. Help me understand from your perspective. Like, I actually don't have a physical Dakota card. I didn't get mailed one. I didn't ask for one. And so this current spending vehicle is just living digitally. I believe I could upload it to my Apple Wallet if I wanted to. Is Arculus anywhere in that flow if there's no physical card, or are there situations where, like, due to like the hardware security or the passkey security or something that you would live in that world?
It depends on the platform. So in that very specific use case, we're not in that flow. If the issuer uses passkeys and has our product, then we could be in the passkey flow and we could be securing your login to the Dakota platform as an example with passkeys. If it is a passkey-based wallet, like Coinbase's, oh, they renamed wallet to Base. So Coinbase's Base mobile app,
Base app, yeah.
if you were using that,
I can't
then
keep track of all their renames.
it's fully passkey compliant and Arculus works with that. So getting back to your modularity question, like, yes, we're usually behind the scenes, but like which Lego is behind the scene depends on very much which platform it is and what the use case is. But like I use, you know, my corporate card, my Arculus corporate card's issued by Rain. And so it has that 3-in-1 and we make the card. And so when I sign the contract with Rain, my wallet app on my card signs the contract with Rain. But if I didn't have that, right, Metamask could sign that contract or some other self-custody platform could sign that contract as an example.
It's really interesting. Do you see, and you use this card issued by Rain with Visa, I'd imagine.
Yep.
And then this is tied to Arculus's, similarly, Arculus's like business checking or expense account in some form.
Yeah, essentially. You know, it actually is tied to stables. So we let's say I get $500 from finance for whatever, right? They give me $500. I have $500 in USDC. I push it to this smart contract, and then every time I spend, I'm at consensus or whatever, and buy a taco, right? I get a receipt. It's fully managed on Rain's platform, and it's cycled at the end of the month. Then a taco's worth of USDC gets burnt and handled and sent to the merchant. So like it's fully cycled, like just like a normal credit card. And yeah, if it's for the merchant, it's just another Visa transaction. Like they have no idea it has stables.
So cool. Do you guys work at all with just in this specific use case you mentioned? I think of like Ramp or Brex or these spend platforms that seem to be just exploding right now. Does there a
Rank
go
and
to
Brex
market
are
there
both
for you guys?
customers. Yep, they're both customers.
Okay. But they've been like Ramps, at least, yeah, Ramp more so than Brex, I think publicly has said a lot of stuff around wanting to, like I was at the Dynamic event about a month ago now, and one of this VPs of product came up and talked about Ramp's focus on the like bringing stablecoin rails into their expense management product for businesses using Ramp. Is there like a wave there that you guys think that is coming that you're riding? Sounds like you already work with these firms. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't want to get into specific firms' plans too much, but just because it's their business and I don't want to overstep. But I will say that on a lot of those type of platforms, you know, our passkey product works really well, right? Where if they're in the stable space or digital asset space in their overall platform, they're usually partnering with a professional custodian and keeping it in a kind of a custodied model. And there we can put the passkey in their internal infra for their employees in their own systems or their customers, right? So typically in that specific use case, it would be a traditional payment card plus our passkey tech that would allow to keep their customers safe. Or if it's employees, employee ID, or the USB version of our passkey stuff that we make, so to keep their employees safe. It really depends on the exact use case, but passkeys are infinitely better than passwords, and that's where everybody should be moving.
Yep. Yep. And it may not even need to in this passkey employee use case, right? Like I'm imagining I'm an employee in the government or in a regulated financial institution. I need to YubiKey or sign into a device or something like that. Passkey model could work there, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine we've done proof of concepts like this. Imagine your employee ID, right? You badge into the building and you're cryptographically getting into the building. There's no reason that ID can't have Visa or Mastercard on it. So you can buy lunch with it and you tap your computer or your phone and you log into Windows Hello and you zero trust log into your platform of choice, right? Like I can do all of that today, like right now, instead of like weird hokey 6 independent systems.
Yeah. That's so cool. The modularity, you're right. Like the modularity makes it exciting, but it's also like that you go to market for, just going after like employee access on like like there's probably whole businesses built on like just access control for stuff like that.
There are, and they're hyper legacy. So it's challenging. But yeah, I mean, the big win is the excitement of what you can tie together, but then the execution is challenging. Like we walked and we're talking into a big casino and like, yeah, look, I can tie that, and that together. And then you get to the 6 different guys that manage those 6 independent silos on 6 independent systems. And it's a lot of work to get it to all tie, even though it can. It's just like I get back to is old legacy infra is hard, and it's shovels and picks to get it out, and a lot of work to get new, seamless, fast, tied together like infra in.
Yeah. Any as we kind of turn the corner here, any final thoughts on the just stablecoin payment card industry? I feel like I kind of drove you away from that, like what you've been seeing or the opportunity that you see there with at least emerging markets or use cases like this.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a huge surge in non-dollarized market because they want access to the US dollar. So, I've said it for years and I'm very adamant about it that the US's most important export is the US dollar, far and away. And the Gensler era was very detrimental to that. We should have been promoting access to the dollar via stables, and instead we were all shuttered up. Now, thankfully, again, we're promoting access to the US dollar. So I think other markets being able to transact in US dollar stables and run traditional payment rails on US dollars is going to be hugely beneficial to the United States. It's more demand for our treasuries, which is always good. And I think it's going to continue to explode in emerging markets, remittance-based systems, remittance-based sending, and spending in general. So yes, I think that's going to continue to grow. And then the other part of stablecoins, even in the US, that people forget about because it's a little boring, is capital efficiency. There's so many places because of T plus N settlement where you have to push collateral and it just sits there and it's dead money and it's ineffective for the issuer, right? Like you have to post, depending on the size of the issuer, millions of dollars to cover holidays, weekends, et cetera, to net settle. And it's just dead money that sits there. That is very inefficient. Settlement times in a lot of legacy systems are inefficient. So the more we can real time this, you just get massive, massive efficiency in capital because it's a good funds model. It's instantly there.
It's incredible. Adam, this was really fun, man. I'm a huge believer in what you guys are building, different in all different modules. I think there's so many unique things to be brought to life that each of those things can bring. When you think about maybe the last question here as we frame, I think our audience and those who might be listening today are likely in the stablecoin industry. They're focused on that. They're building in that. They are either working at a firm or might be listening in to learn more about this space to enter it for the first time. What would be your charge to them? Like who is Arculus not for, or who is Arculus for? The first question might be even more important. Like, yeah, well, what would be your invitation or call to the market who's might be looking into getting in touch with you guys right now?
Sure. So I think who Arculus is for is anybody that wants to do what I'll call grown-up crypto. And what I mean by that is like 8-bit cats are fun, but that's not the business we're in, and that's not the business that we're focused on. So there's some of these kind of fun, hyper niche things that just we don't have the bandwidth to pursue. Like we want to change the world in payments. We want to drive access to the dollar and efficiency everywhere. So my call to the stablecoin industry and the digital assets industry is like, look, it's really, really, really hard to serve those different gauge railroads and serve Web 2 and Web 3. I've lost literal years on my life to make sure that we can serve Web 2, Web 2.5, Web 3. So my call is if you're in that nexus of space and in payments, I think we've built an amazing platform that can serve it. And if we can't serve 100% of it, I'm quite sure we're good friends with people that can. So let's form a coalition and execute and change the world. And that's what gets me excited and makes me show up to this office every day.
Amazing. Well, Adam, thank you for your time. It's a great place to end. Really do mean that. I think this is really crucial stuff. And I do resonate with this sort of grown up crypto model and moment that we're in. I think there are a lot of people graduating into that who maybe historically thought of this as more, meme coins have their place, but I haven't really ever gotten fired up about that sort of thing. It's been great working with you and Tom in recent months. So yeah, man, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have fun.
Cool.